Unmuted.
Thank you, Barry. Um, First of all, I think I'd like to talk a little bit about what exactly we do. A lot of people have a little misconceptions about our profession, uh, mainly because we're kind of considered handwriting examiners, and people don't look all that much farther than that. Uh, what we do in addition to handwriting comparisons is we essentially will deal with anything that has to do with documents with the exception of fingerprints. This could include the examination of documents for evidence of alterations, counterfeiting, ink and paper analyses, charred document restoration, water-soaked document restoration, and classification and identification of multiple office machine products from check writers to staples, staple holes, typewriters, computer printers. So there's really a vast area that we're involved in. Probably the most important thing for you looking into getting into the question document discipline of the forensic sciences is your basic education. What I've been seeing over the last couple of years is a strong emphasis on the hard sciences, the chemistry, the physics, and in addition to the forensic sciences. I've worked pretty closely with the curriculum for forensic science at the University of Central Florida, and the emphasis on the instrumentation and the chemistry is very, very strong. Within that, probably the most important course within the college curriculum is the internship. While at University of Central Florida, the students are kind of on their own with a little assistance from the faculty to find an internship, but wherever you have your curriculum, I strongly urge you to discuss with your instructors and the people who guide the curriculum to seek out 3-month internships at government laboratories. The laboratories are usually more than happy to take on students. There is no pay in it, but you get the experience and the contacts, both of which are very, very important for reasons we'll get into shortly. I'm not going to sugarcoat this part. The need to keep your grades up can't be stressed enough. The competition for jobs is very strong. There are very, very few positions that come open, and when they do, the competition is very tough. So, as one instructor told me, find a way of making yourself stand out. And one way is through the internship, where you've shown an interest in the discipline of forensic document examination over other disciplines within the forensic sciences, and that will catch the eyes and ears of the people that make the decisions. In addition to that, I strongly urge you during the internship to ask questions of the people that are working there. Meet as many people in the profession as you can and express your interest in the field. If during the 3-month internship there's opportunity to attend meetings with the people from the laboratory you are interning at, by all means, that will be money well spent to go to those meetings. Again, to increase your base of who you. Have I just lost the video?
No, it looks like you're still here.
No, it looks like you're still here. Okay, my video went away on my screen, but that's not a problem. There are 2 sources for the internship. There's the government laboratories, which I've talked about earlier, You got your federal laboratories, state laboratories, and some large municipal government laboratories, but there's also private laboratories. I personally have had 3 different interns from the University of Central Florida, so it is possible to get internship through the people within private practice. So don't overlook that possibility. The next area I want to talk about a little bit is training. We have standards in our profession for training. When you actually get into the training, and this is above and beyond anything you do in the college and in your internship, you can expect to go through 2 years of full-time in-residence training. The reason for that is there are many facets to the field of forensic document examination, as I talked about earlier. You need to learn the methodologies within each of those examinations, and you also must gain the experience during the training, that basic core of experience in each of those disciplines, while being directed by your primary trainer to learn how to do each of those. And in addition, when something kind of unusual comes up, you're trained to realize that there's something just a little bit different about this particular case, and how you go about handling it and your thought process. So there's a large experience aspect to the training, and that's why it requires so much time. And in fact, I wouldn't be surprised in the very near future the standard is increased beyond the 2 years because of the exploding technology within the field. Next, I'd like to talk about meetings. Meetings and conferences are very important for the aspect of getting to be face-to-face with people in the profession, expressing your interest in the field, and getting to know them not only as forensic document examiners, but as individuals, so that when positions come available, they'll think of you rather than the other way around. And I've seen it work that way. So attend the meetings, volunteer to assist in any of meetings. There's always things that need to be done. I'm the chairman of the question document section of the academy, and there's always things that need to be done, and I can always use volunteers to assist with the program. We always give credit by name and have them referenced, so you get the chance to be up front and get a little time face to face with the entire session. With that, I think at this point I'd like to open up for a few questions before we go on beyond this, and see if we have any questions into what I've talked about so far.
Great. So I'm an FDE at Forensic Medicine Authority Egypt. Is there any advice that you could give for me in reference to a training course too?
My main recommendation is do not shortcut. Because you're located in a place where you may have difficulty finding an individual to be the primary trainer, that's going to be the most difficult thing to work through. You can find a trainer fortunately with web situations like this, where you might be able to work with people at a little bit more long distance, but still have that personal touch to that. And there are opportunities for training with training officers that like come from the United States overseas, or if you come from overseas to another country to train in, that would be the way to go. I know that's not completely answering the question to make it easy for you, but unfortunately, there isn't always an easy answer. And unfortunately, there's people that take shortcuts because of that. And they say, well, I can't afford to take 2 years out of my life to get the training, so I'm just going to take a couple online courses and make a go of it that way. The result of that is very undertrained people with very unreliable conclusions who I come up against fairly frequently, and quite frankly, they make a mockery of the justice system. So, in summary, the most important thing is do not allow yourself to shortcut the training. Find someone who is willing to work with you and will get you through the entire 2 years of training, and that may involve some travel either from the trainer or from you.
You spoke briefly about meetings and spoke a little bit about the Academy's meeting. Are there any other organizations that you recommend attending a meeting for?
Yes, I'm assuming the questioner is from the United States. If not, please make a follow-up question. But in the United States, the other main national organization is the American Society of Question Document Examiners. That was founded in the 1940s and actually had its genesis back all the way to about 1910. I think it can be best described as the gold standard within the field of forensic document examination. It's been around forever. The founder is kind of considered the father of modern forensic document examination, so it holds a very important place in the hearts of forensic document examiners. I will say if you're in the training mode, though, their meetings tend to be a little bit on the expensive side. A little more inexpensive meeting where you'll still get a lot of face-to-face contact would be regional meetings, such as the Southeastern Association of Forensic Document Examiners. They meet in Atlanta every year. The Southwest Association of Forensic Document Examiners that meet at various places in the southwest part of the country every year. The Midwest Association of Forensic Sciences that of course meets in the Midwest area. There's the Mid-Atlantic Association of Forensic Sciences that meets around the Virginia, North Carolina, Washington, D.C. area. And if you're up in New England, there's the Northeast Association of Forensic Sciences. You can find out more about them by just going online and plugging in those names. And usually the registration fee is extremely low. They're very well attended, and that would be a very good place for a person just starting training to get to know quite a few people. And on that part about getting to know people, it's a really good idea to build up as many one-on-one relationships with people as you can, showing your interest to where you can call them whenever you have any questions or asking for ideas, sharing the difficulties you're having in looking for positions. Because you'll find that most document examiners, at least most of them that I know, are very aware that we need to have new blood coming into the profession, and we'll do whatever we can to help you. It's just that there aren't all that many positions that come open with, particularly with government cutbacks right now, but they do happen. So you have to plan to be able to stick with it for a while. It may not be something you'll get into right away, but if you stick with it long enough and continue to show the interest, continue to attend the meetings, continue to maintain those contacts, your opportunity will come eventually.
Great. I'm going to hold off on this next one. It's a little bit about coursework, unless you want to speak on that now.
There are no, I would say there are no standards in the actual training of forensic document examiners as far as a written standard. But as far as standardizing the training, many organizations have standardized training. I would say most of them go back through the Army Crime Laboratory that established the training. Other federal agencies have used that as a model for establishing their training program, and state agencies, and they've all kind of blended together such that the training programs from one agency to another don't vary all that much. Now there will be some additional training for certain situations, such as the Secret Service will have additional training because they deal with counterfeiting money. So there's a lot more to do with counterfeiting than other agencies may have. So their training period is actually 3 years as opposed to 2. And other agencies will tailor their training for the specific needs that their agency has, but and it should be above and beyond the basic 2-year training. So what they'll usually do is they'll do it in module form. They'll deal with one area first, say handwriting, and they might get into what class characteristics are and what handwriting system is, what handwriting systems exist in the United States, what the differences are from one handwriting system to another, how much schools today even teach handwriting systems, and if they don't teach it, what are they teaching, what are they looking at, are they getting away from even teaching cursive anymore, or are they doing all printing? So they'll deal with that in one module and then test you on your proficiency that covers that, and then move on to the next module, which might be signatures. So you'll get a modular approach to it, of which you'll be tested on each part, and then each part will be added to the next, because very rarely do you have such a specific question that would deal with, say, what was the handwriting system used by this writer. You'll usually end up with problems. Well, here's a question handwriting on a document which may also be altered, and if it's not altered, is it even a genuine, or could it be a counterfeit? So there will be multifaceted questions to be answered. So as your training progresses, you'll add on the multifaceted aspect to the training, and that is the, I won't say accepted method, that's the practiced method that has proven to work within our profession. And it also is my understanding that we are either currently at work or about to get to work on a standardized training program for forensic document examination. I believe that's being done through the American Society of Question Document Examiners.
Tom, do you think you could say something about any kind of insight you have into what research is going on in question document field, or where that research is being done?
Yes, I'd be happy to, because I get to toot my horn a little bit on that one. The main area that the judiciary has been questioning forensic science is on their statistical foundations. And so we in our discipline, along with pretty much every other discipline, has been working hard to establish a more concrete foundation from which we can show that our conclusions are accurate and reliable. Some of the efforts that have been made have included studies of error rates within the profession, why these error rates occur, how they relate to people that have not been trained. I have been involved in a government research project in which we are studying the frequency of occurrence of various handwriting characteristics to be able to show the statistical basis of any certain handwriting characteristic that a person may come across. Other research has been showing, I know there's one out of Minnesota that has been showing how handwriting goes from in third grade to being taught how to write through a handwriting system up through the age of 18, showing how quickly handwriting becomes individualized. There's also been studies lately. A big study is going to be shown at the Academy meeting coming up in Seattle concerning being able to distinguish between signatures that are simulations, signatures that are disguised, signatures that are just natural, genuine signatures, to show that the distinguishing between those can be made. So fortunately, we're because of the judge's rulings, we have focused in more heavily on the statistical basis, and that's showing up in the research that's being conducted now.
So would you say that most of that research is being done in crime laboratories and other agencies where forensic document examiners work, or is some of it being done in a university setting?
Could you repeat that? The first part kind of came in and out.
Sure. If the research is being done by people who are practitioners in the field, who are working in crime labs and do this either in their spare time or part of their regular job duties, or is it done in an academic setting or a university setting?
It's been done with both. And I will also add, though, that the ones that have been headed by academics, they have included practicing forensic document examiners as part of the research team. And conversely, those who have that are headed by forensic document examiners have enlisted academics into their projects. You know, I hadn't even thought of that question before, but I can't think of a major research project going on right now that doesn't have both involved in it, and that's very healthy, because there's multiple ways to look at the research project, and if you want it done right, all those aspects have to be considered. I don't really see where either one or the other could do justice to a major research project, nowhere near as well as if you had them working in tandem.
One other question I had that's come up in some of our other webinars is if somebody's interested in this field, particularly in document examination, and they apply for a job, an entry-level job, what kind of characteristics or background are important to someone like you in deciding who to hire for an entry-level trainee position as a document examiner?
The degree, the quality of the curriculum,
So how do you assess those things? What kind of things are you looking for in their curriculum?
I'm looking for hard sciences. How much level of chemistry is there? If it's not a forensic science degree, I would certainly look a little higher on a forensic science degree, but I'd also look at it to see if it was a degree that was heavy on the sciences and a little less on the criminology aspect of it. I would look at to see their interest in the specific discipline of question documents versus just an interest in all the disciplines and seeing which one they could land. Do they actually have a specific interest in question documents? I would look to see if they've done an internship, and if they have, did they do that in forensic document examination, or did they do that somewhere else? And if they did it in forensic document examination, who did they do it with, so I could contact them and find out a little bit more about the person.
Yeah, that's actually a great point, because more and more programs now, forensic science degree programs, and even people who are not specifically enrolled in these, but as part of their final year curriculum, like their students participate in internships. How easy is it to find an internship with a question document examiner that would give you that kind of experience, and how might you go about that?
Well, first of all, you'd have to check with the university you're attending to see whether they allow it, number one. And if they do, what are the parameters for doing it? Do they have contacts that they use, or are you on your own to find it? What do they expect of you? I mean, what you don't want is you don't want to end up at a place where you're cleaning test tubes for 3 months. You want to go to a place where you're actually learning a little bit, either through some specific research or just sitting and looking over the shoulder of an examiner. But again, it's that combination of getting firsthand exposure to it and learning really what forensic document examination is versus what you're told in school, which is a very scrubbed down version of reality. So you'll get more of a realistic understanding of the profession through that 3 months. I can't think of a more important course than the internship. And if you have to go out and do it yourself, call anyone, call me. And I can put you in contact with a document examiner in the closest to the area where you're at. It's one of those systems where you make the one call and ask for help, and like I said, we'll do what we can to help you. And if that means I got to call another friend, say out in California, if you're out in California, I'll hook you up with them, and then they may hook you up with someone else or a laboratory that they're aware of to see if they can get you in that laboratory. And we'll be more than supportive to help you, but it's going to require the initiative on your part to make that phone call or the inquiry, or for the university to do it if that's their procedure.
People, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, they could probably do that through the AAFS office, and the contact information for that office is on our website at aafs.org.
Yeah, or just put my name into a Google search, and you won't have any problem finding me, since I don't have the name Smith. I'm pretty easy to find.
Great. I got another one.
So once somebody is in the profession, you've talked about the fact that they will study alongside a practicing document examiner. How long is it before they could expect to start working on some casework?
I would say after a few months, you'd probably be looking and working some casework, but not signing off on it. You wouldn't sign off on any case until after your training is completed. And the reason for that is that when you put your first signature on your first report, you're essentially publicizing the fact that you are considered trained. And so I would be very concerned about anyone that would have a trainee signing reports before the completion of their 2-year training program. And I would suspect it would come back to haunt you in a particularly contentious litigation, where I could see an attorney making an issue of the fact that your actual basic training would end with the coming time of your signing your first exam, and anything after that would be considered continuing education. And if you sign that report before completing the 2 years of training, then they could argue that you had not followed the standards for training within the profession, which requires 2 years of training. So it's something that could come back to haunt you. So don't expect to sign reports and actually go to court until after your 2 years of training is over. But that doesn't mean you're not going to actually be working the cases and then going over them with your training officer, because he's going to want to do that very early on to get you going, to build up, like I said, that basis of experience. Wants to get to know your thought process, how you work through each case, because once they establish that you got that solid thought process, then you're on the road to having a very rewarding profession.
I think you have some other questions there, Jeff.
Yeah, could you explain a little bit more about how the hard sciences are related to document examination?
Yeah, I'll explain that maybe by giving a few examples. One of which is one of the characteristics we look for in say an attempt to simulate or trace writing is what we call poor line quality, and that's the smoothness of the writing stroke or the extent of angular movement within the writing. And that's really just an application of motion physics, in that a person moving a writing instrument at a certain speed cannot create a jiggly movement, for a lack of a better term, because of the speed that they're moving with the writing instrument. So if you see writing that under the microscope looks like the mountain road on a map, it would be a violation of the physics of motion that the person could be moving rapidly and be able to do that. Other areas would be in the area of ink chemistry. It's not uncommon to run some thin layer chromatographies to determine differences in the chemical compounds of ink or paper coatings or something along those lines. That's just a couple examples of using the hard sciences.
Great, that's all I've got so far.
What kind of salaries do people make when they both into the field of question document examination, and then once they reach kind of a journey level, what kind of compensation are they likely to find?
They'll vary quite a bit, because you have certain states and smaller departments that may not be able to afford much. I think you could realistically expect to start around 35 to 40,000, and I think some of the larger agencies, when you get to the journeyman level, you're getting pretty close to the between $80,000 to $100,000 range, particularly if you get up into management level. In private practice, you can get significantly higher than that, but then of course there's the added costs of maintaining your practice. So the gross may be high, but the net may be somewhat comparable to government, or a little bit higher.
So if somebody was interested in finding out some more about the field, they would be able to attend the American Academy of Forensic Sciences meeting without being a member of the organization. It's open to the public. Anybody can register to participate and attend the scientific sessions and hear about the various disciplines. What are some of the things that are going to be part of the question documents program at a meeting in Seattle?
We're going to have a workshop on Tuesday going into, again, some of the hard physics of light as it applies to non-destructive ink and paper analyses. It's an all-day session, and it would be, I believe there's spaces open for people who are students and would like to get in there. We're going to have the results of a 2-year study from West Kentucky about, it was a study I was talking about earlier, what I think it was Western Kentucky University, about being able to differentiate between simulations and disguised writing and genuine signatures, and what the results of all that were. And we're going to have a number of overseas guests coming over to talk about some of the unusual features going on overseas. Speaking of which relates back to an earlier question, I just got an email a couple days ago that a university in China is going to be putting together a proficiency test in Chinese to test whether people who cannot read the language can still make proper identifications or eliminations of the actual writer of a question writing. And that should prove quite interesting, because courts have ruled, one federal court ruled against the admissibility of being able to testify about writing in a case of Japanese writing. So that's going to be an interesting project, and I believe it's going to be discussed at the meeting coming up.
Are there any other questions there? Chris, did you explain to people how they could ask questions through that chat box? I think you might be muted right now.
Thanks, Barry. Yeah, so feel free to submit your questions through that chat box, and we can take those in. Here's one. How do you certify the FDs as being qualified?
We have a independent certification board, the American Board of Forensic Document Examiners out of Houston, Texas. In order to even apply for the testing, you have to complete a minimum full-time 2-year training program. And then you must successfully complete each part of a 3-part testing process. The first part of the test involves taking multifaceted problems. There's 5 of you. You'll be given 5 of them. Each of them have many, many different questions that go to them. You then take a written test, and then finally you'll have to defend one or more of your practical problems in front of a peer panel. There are currently about 130 board-certified examiners in the United States, and it's my understanding that it's not guaranteed that you pass the test. There's been a number of people that have not passed the board certification test, so it is not an easy test. I wish the courts would be as stringent as we are in our own self-policing.
Great. So is this 2-year training program in conjunction with an undergraduate degree or separate from it?
Separate.
Okay. It looks like that's all I have now.
Okay. So, do you have any concluding remarks?
Well, yes, I would. It's kind of a mixed closing message. I really want to encourage people to look at forensic document examination as a career because the amount of interesting uh, things we see are beyond belief. I've been in the profession since 1977, and I'm still seeing things for the first time. And it just absolutely intrigues me. I enjoy the profession so much, even though I've been in it all these years, that I'm still waking up in the morning thinking, well, what day of the week is it? Is it a Tuesday? Is it a Thursday? Is it a Saturday? And I can remember having jobs before that when I certainly knew when it was Monday because I didn't particularly like the job. But I really, really love my profession. But on the other side of the coin is I do want to realistically say that the position openings can be very difficult to get because of the heavy competition for them and the few numbers of them. So I want you to have a realistic expectation when going into it. But if you really are strongly enthusiastic about it, there are things you can do that will increase your chances of being able to get into the profession.
I guess just in closing, I'd also draw everybody's attention to the fact that within the American Academy of Forensic Sciences, we do have an organization that supports career development and advancement for young forensic scientists called our Young Forensic Scientists Forum, or YFSF. And there's information about that group on the website, the AAFS website also. It's an organization of younger scientists, for younger scientists, and they put together their own program. But one of the big benefits is that they provide guidance on people who are interested in the profession and how to prepare their resume, how to apply for internships, how to seek out their first job. And since they're meeting in conjunction with the rest of our organization, they also have an opportunity to network with people in the field and meet people who might be future employers or potentially sponsors for their applications to join the organization. So I've certainly talked a lot about AAFS, but it is for people who are interested in a career in this field, it's a great way to meet people and make your first steps in forensic science. So with that, I'd like to thank Tom for representing the question document section on tonight's webinar. The session is being recorded and it will be posted online. Jeff, maybe you can give people some indication about how they can access that.
Absolutely. I got a few more questions here that maybe we can answer first. Do you know anything about the certification process outside of the USA, or a good resource that you could point them at to find more about that?
I know in Australia and New Zealand, they're actually being expanded to the American Board of Forensic Document Examiners here in the United States. I am not familiar with what is going on elsewhere.
Okay. And then what advice do you have for dealing with graphologists in court?
Bring a bottle of Tums with you. The graphologist, for those who don't know what a graphologist is a person who believes you can assess personality from the handwriting. You don't normally run into them in courts because graphology per se is not admissible in courts in the United States. But there are a lot of people whose background is in graphology who has discovered that you can make a pretty good living as a forensic document examiner, and since they deal with handwriting, well, they should be able to be a forensic document examiner, so they may take 1 or 2 online courses. And remember what I said about taking shortcuts. These are people that make a career out of taking shortcuts. They start their so-called profession and unfortunately make a mockery of the forensic sciences. Uh, they try to weasel their way into organizations. They try to weasel their way into courts. I have seen people that just have zero ethics and will say anything that their client wants to hear. As a result of it, it's really just a personally repugnant thing to have to face. But what you have to do as an ethical, appropriately trained document examiner is to stay focused on your profession, uh, show the reasons for your conclusions, and in the end, if you've done your job right, the reasoning for your conclusion should be very clear to the judge or the jury, and the findings should be made accordingly based on what you have said.
Great. So that is all I have. If you want to view this webinar again, you can through the AAFS website. That's aafs.org/webinars. It should be up by the end of the week, and we'll have a link there for you to view it and share it to anyone who you think might have enjoyed this. I want to thank you guys all for coming and joining us tonight. And thank you again, Thomas, for being here, and Barry, too. It's been quite an interesting session.
Thank you, and I want to thank all the attendees for taking the time to show their interest.